Hi, everyone. Welcome to Deliberately Intentional with me, Remi. Today, I'm going to be talking about something that I'm really passionate about, and it is friendships. I have always had friends, and making new friends has also been something that's been very easy for me to do. I've moved from America back to Nigeria, then Nigeria to London, then London to the US, and then back from the US back to the UK. I have moved so many times, and each time I've moved, I've made friends. But talking to someone this week, actually a new client, and her number one issue, in her case, we're dealing with personal growth. And her problem is making friends. She feels that making adult friendships are just really hard. And it got me thinking, like, I realized that something that I do very naturally is really, really hard for a lot of other people. Is that you? Do you find it easy to make friends, or is it something that you struggle with? That's a question I'm going to put out to you guys. But as I said, it got me thinking. I had to think back to my very first friendship that I can remember. I don't remember any childhood friendships. I'm not like my son. My son has friends that he's had since the age of 2 because I know the value of friendship. But I don't remember any friends in elementary school or in like pre-K or anything like that. So my first or my earliest memory of a solid friendship that has been and is still one of my good friends to today is in high school. And it how did we meet or how did we become friends? We had a shared interest. I always say to people that that's actually where you're going to meet most of the people in your life. This particular person, her name's Titi, she and I were avid readers. And so our friendship stemmed from the fact that I love to read. I could read, I've just said to you before, I've read a dictionary before when I was bored. So she liked to read books. It was, we had to hide that we were reading romantic novels because, good girls didn't read romantic novels. So we used to cover it with newspaper. I laugh at some of those memories. But she was my book partner. She got books and then she would exchange whatever novel that she had with me. And I would find books from people would leave books in places. I would quickly snag it, read it real quick. That's how I became a really fast reader. I could read a book overnight. I could read a book in a matter of hours. It just depends on how focused I am and if I'm not busy. Back in the day, 2 hours tops, I could finish reading a book. And I used to have to read them really fast in Titi's case because she was also a fast reader. We're still friends till today. That's more than 30 something year of friendship. But she was my first friend. One of the things that a lot of people find hard to do is to be vulnerable. And maybe because all throughout my life, I didn't really have much choice in it. And why I say that is each of the friends that I've made, they kind of met me in the midst of my ongoing problems. And so it never even occurred to me to hide my problems. I was just always wearing my heart on my sleeve. And I realize now that that's kind of why some of the things that have happened to me haven't really stayed because I've always been able to voice it. Something happened, I was always sharing it with a friend. And now that I'm older, I realize that each time I shared my problem, it created an outlet. It didn't stay with me, it kind of left me and I felt a little lighter. So moving from Titi, then I met Tola, then I met my bigger group of friends, Buki, Ebi, Bodroni. Yeah, I've always had like a strong, solid friend group. Now, why are these friendships so important? Because whether you like it or not, at each level and stage of your life, you're going to find that these friends are going to have different uses. They're going to help you in different ways, and you're going to help them too. When I was going through my traumatic childhood, those friends helped me get through it. My friends then would distract me. My friends were the best distraction because everything going on with them, everybody's lives were more fascinating than mine. So I used to escape from my life by going into their lives, and they were always super welcoming. It's part of the reason why I'm even more friendly today. And I realized that it's because of my friends, the friends that I had early on, because of how good they were, they are the reason why I've never been shy about making more friends. I guess that if you've been in a situation whereby your friends have been mean to you or you didn't have the best situations, then for you, it's going to be different. But I do want to tell you that just because you've had one bad experiences or two or a few, it doesn't mean that there are not still good people out there. There are. But back to my story about me and my friends. By the time I got to college, my friends had completely, like it or not, erased. I wouldn't say erased my family, but they became my family. I hate saying erased because they didn't kind of, but when you want to escape a particular area, you want to forget about something, which I really wanted to forget my childhood and my home, my friends were my escape. I say that, and I'm really, really particular about bringing this up because as a parent now, I try to make sure my home is that happy place and my son doesn't need to escape to his friends. He's got a ton of friends, but they're an addition to his life, not an escape for him. Because even though I was very fortunate, I realized that friendships can go either way. You can have some really amazing friendships, and you could also get some really bad ones. I happen to be lucky. In my bid to want to leave home, I was able to meet really good people. I always say that maybe my mom was looking out for me in that one, but I did meet a lot of really good people. But what would have happened if these same people that I was running to go and meet, what if they had been bad? I mean, my life could have turned out completely different. But because I had some really amazing friends, my very first ticket out of Nigeria was purchased by my friend and boyfriend. Like they shared it together. Um, they the long list of things that my friends have done for me is so long, but it's also part of the reason why I talk about them often. I don't think I'd be who I am today without my friends. I don't think I would have survived everything that I went through without my friends. But this, and as much as I love my friends, because I've moved so many times, we're still close, but they're no longer the ones that I see on a day-to-day basis. So what does that mean? That means that in my adulthood, I've had to make new friends. So when I left Nigeria, the first friend I made in America was Ilona. Ilona I had met while I was waitressing. Most of you feel like, okay, you don't know where to meet friends. The first place, wherever you're spending the most time, either in school or at work, or if you're one that's a gym buff, if it's church, all of the places where you actually, again, spend the most of your time is actually where you should be meeting people. Of course, it's not necessarily as easy as it was when you were younger. Most of us want people to just click with us immediately. Most people have their lives already going on. So you do have to have a bit of patience. You might have to try a few different people to see where you click. But Ilona was my first friend in America. Actually, she was not my first. It was Nana was my first. Nana was my uncle's girlfriend. But Ilona was my first friend that I made on my own. And she was a waitress just like me at Junior's restaurant. The reason why I bring her up, may her soul rest in peace, because she passed away. But the reason why I bring her up was we were just the two youngest people that worked at Junior's at that time. Everybody else was much older. They were kind of like career wait staff, so they'd all been there for a certain number of years. And I was young and she was young. And so of course we hit it off immediately. So after that we started hanging out after work. And from after work, then she would come to my house and I would go to I don't think I ever went to her house. Everyone came to my place because I had my own place and she was still living with her parents at that point in time. She passed away on a motorcycle accident on the Long Island Expressway. And I was one of the last people to see her. Because of her, I used to hate motorcycles for a really long time. But bringing this back to my friendships, from Ilona, I learned it didn't really matter what my nationality was. She was Guyanese. That was my first Caribbean friend. From her, I learned how to eat all the Caribbean foods because she was an avid cook. So she cooked for me and I made Nigerian food for her. That was from her. Moving on, I want to touch on another really important friendship that I made because I made several in school. Remember that one's from waitressing. I worked at Madison Square Garden, made friends there. I've made friends from literally every place that I've been. Some of them have stayed because our personalities mesh, and some of them have not. But every friend of mine has taught me something. The friend that has brought her Caribbean culture into my world, great. I'm going to bring up one of my big sisters who has taught me one of my most profound lessons. And I want to talk about how I met her. I met her on a plane. I meet a lot of people on a plane. But yes, you're going to be stuck in an aircraft for a good anywhere from 6 to 12 hours, 6 to 15 hours. You might as well get a conversation going. That was exactly how I met my big sister, Ife. She and I were, it's probably more than she and I were on a flight from Lagos to was it a stopover or was it a straight direct flight? I think that no, it was a direct flight to New York. And she had just lost I think she had just lost somebody in her family. And I was just doing my usual happy go lucky self on the plane. And that was how we sat down beside each other. And the first thing I remember saying to her was complimenting her over her bag. And she looked at me up and down and she's like, thanks. And then she looked at me again. It's like, your bag is cute too. And that's how I smiled. And I don't know how we hit up the conversation. We ended up changing seats. I know that we laughed. We cried on that same one flight. And then immediately after we landed in New York, I think my husband came to pick me up. I introduced her to my husband immediately and to Charles because they both came to pick me up at the airport. We asked if she wanted to go, if we could drop her off. She said no, she was good. But we met up the following day and we've been friends ever since. I call her my big sister and she's probably the first older person that I had met. She's just a couple of years older than me, but she had a wealth of knowledge. She still does, has a wealth of knowledge that I didn't have. And I have to, the reason why I bring her up specifically is because she's married. Almost all of my other friends, female friends, had not been married at the time that I had met her. A lot of my close friends are still not married to today. So for me at that point in time, all of my friends were guys. The guys had been married, and they were giving me knowledge of marriage from a guy standpoint. They didn't have none of my male friends actually ever pointed out certain things that I was probably doing wrong in my marriage. Even though they saw it, nobody said anything. But she was the first person to point out that I was not nurturing enough and that I was not caring enough and how to be um how does she call it? How does she say it? How to be more endearing, affectionate. In my mind you, I thought I was, but after she pointed it out, I realized that I wasn't. You gotta have friends like that. She's one very good example of somebody that I always feel like God brings people into your life at the perfect time. And when she came into my life, it's been more than maybe 15 years now. When she came into my life, it was at one of those times that I really, really needed it. And I say that because I don't think if I had written on a list that, okay, you know what, here are the things that you need in your life. I don't think I felt like I had enough. I wouldn't have thought to myself that a friend was one of them, but it was. And whether we like it or not, I was also helpful to her because she didn't have any younger sisters. She was an only child. Oh, she's an only child. And she didn't have younger ones. And she had just lost somebody at that point in time of her life. So when I came in with all of my siblings and all my baggage and my doting, it filled a void in her too. Even in our adulthood, there are spaces that we don't really realize that we need filled. Family can do a lot for you, but your friends are going to do so much too. It was one of my friends that taught me how to better my jollof rice. That's Ife. She taught me how to make better jollof rice. There's my friend who's impeccable with her house. Her house is absolutely always amazing. I learned how to be better with keeping my house together from her. My aunt and uncle have taught me so many lessons on how to be, even though they're my aunt and uncle, I still count them. I count them as a lesson learned in friendship as well, even though we're related. But they've shared and shown me how beneficial it is to understand someone's differences from yours and how those differences, even if they're nothing like you can still support that person and still be your own person despite those differences. There's another friendship of mine that I'm going to bring up. I try not to mention names because I'm not really one that likes to name drop, but this one is as well is over. I think this one started in 2008, so it's it's been a long time as well, almost 20 years soon. But I was working, and it was a friend of mine, one of my coworkers, that said, "Oh, you know what? You're into fashion. You would be amazing for you to meet my sister. My sister is also into fashion." He introduces me to his sister. His sister and I hit it off, and we've been friends ever since. You can literally continue doing the same things that you're doing, and other people will see what you're doing and see that, you know what? I've got somebody that I need you to meet. I can't count the number of people that I've met by me just being me. Oh, you need to come and meet my friend Remi. Or I've also done the same thing where I've taken people to go and meet other people because I was like, you know what? You need to meet this other person too. But why are these friendships so important? Because whether you like it or not, if I go back and think about my first set of friends that were in Nigeria, if I were to say what everyone says, no new friends, I would still be stuck on the fact that, wait, all of my friends are in Nigeria. I wouldn't have made any of the friends that I've made here. But at every juncture of my life, whether it was when I first got married, or when my son started swimming, or when he was in pre-K, or when we even moved from the UK to the US, or even from the US back to the UK, each of those places, I've had to make new friends because, like it or not, companionship is something that we all need. I am so passionate about friendships, and I know a lot of people wonder, how can you keep so many friendships? Well, the truth of it is, I don't have to speak to anyone every day. All of these friendships still exist. We touch bases with each other as need be, but none of them am I having to speak to on a regular basis, whereby it's like, okay, every day. If I were thinking about it every day, I would not get anything done because that's how many friends I have. But because they're so widely spaced out, we just have to check in every so often, and the friendships still continue. We have one solid conversation and it's like, okay, the past 4 years I just caught up on, or the past 1 year I just caught up on. But like it or not, we're there for each other as a resource. We don't talk about how important friendships are. A lot of us don't have enough of them, and a lot of us don't know how to make them. The downside of that is, if you don't know how to make friends, you don't know how to be a friend, how are you going to be able to be the ultimate friend to someone, which is a partner in a relationship? It becomes even harder. If you keep thinking of yourself as an island, I don't need anybody. I don't want to get hurt. I don't want anybody to betray my confidence. I don't, because there's a long list of things which I do understand that happen with friendships. But I do say that the people that can't understand you and take you for who you are, those people don't need to be in your life. Don't take it personal when someone isn't exactly who you expect them to be. Let it go. Say that it's their loss, because truthfully, it is. I don't think that it's not that I've not met people that have not been great, but I don't judge them for being whoever they are. I just simply let them go. The ones that are meant to stay in my life will stay. The ones that are not meant to be there, and even if I meet them with my super friendly personality, they're not meant to be there. They will find their way and it just won't click. But that's why I was able to meet up with my husband and shortly after say that, you know what, I've met the person I want to marry. It's because I know enough about people. I've learned enough about people to say that, hey, this is a good person. The more you meet people, the better your radar is going to be at being able to tell who's a good person and who's not, who's your type of person, who's not. Everything I've learned about friendships, I've taught my son. And so he's now even better at making friends, keeping friends than even I am. And he's even doing it, straight up blindly. He can cold call a person and say, like, you know what? Hey, we should network and meet. I love his fearlessness. But again, that's also something that I've done in the past too, and I've shared with him. My most random friendship came from a magazine article. I know it sounds random, but it's the truth. Linda, hi Linda. I'm sure when you hear this, you'll smile too. I sent an email to, because she was what was Linda doing? She had a whole full page spread about the watches that she was selling at that point in time. They're just people Italia. I was still heavily into styling and personal shopping, and I always wanted to do things that would make me different. So at that point in time, I was looking at, well, these watches are different. They're not in stores. I'm like, it would be a good idea if I could take some of them and sell them. So I sent her an email. This was me sitting in a salon, came across her article. I think I probably, have a phone, or I wrote it down, or I took the magazine. I can't remember what I did, but I sent her an email. She responded. She asked me my story. I sent her back another email. Even like 2 or 3 emails back and forth. She's like, I'm going to be in New York in 3 weeks. We should meet. I met her. We talked. I think we sat there. Again, remember I said I don't have a problem being vulnerable. Told her my entire story. She told me her story. We fell in love with each other, for lack of a better word, and we did business for about a year or two. And now we've been friends ever since then. That's probably 10, no, it's more than 10 years. Probably another 14 years because I was having, probably about 14 years now that we've been friends. The most random of my friendships is probably Linda's. I can't count the people that are like, oh, I was going to my celebrity friendships. Let's not even get into those. They're all random. None of them did I ever know I was going to meet when I met them. I'm going to go see my friend Aloha. I end up seeing her with somebody else. That's how I ended up becoming friends with her friends, and we all still maintain friends. Or someone says she's coming to my place. She brings one of the celebrity actresses that I know now. And it's like, oh, hey, I know you. And hey, no, I've heard about you. And that's how that conversation gets going. Every time you make a friendship, it's not like you ditch another. It just makes your world fuller. There has to be something about you that would allow these people to want to get to know you more. This is the same for friendship, and it's the same thing for networking. If you want to network people out, and again, this comes up even more importantly because when I was in the height of hustling for my styling business, I couldn't tell people that, hey, your dress sense sucks. You need my help. I just had to make sure that I was present and I came correct to make them want to get to talk to me. And then they got to know what I did, because it's really rude for you to come up and be like, hey, I think you need my help. I think the way you're dressing is a little off. I can make your life a little better. Nobody's going to want to hear that. Their defenses are going to be up immediately. But if I came correct, I dressed appropriately, they're all going to be interested in finding out who I was and what I did. And they would then say, hey, I think I need your help. And almost every business transaction, business relationship that I've built has started from me just being present in a situation, whether it's at a party and someone says, oh, I've heard of you, or it's at a dinner. It's like, oh, wait, what are you wearing? I love that. Can I get your card? It's always been just me being present. My personality has always opened doors for me. You can do that too. Instead of you looking at it the opposite way, like nobody's going to pay any attention to me, why not put your best foot forward and like, you know what, I'm going to make a friend today. I've made friends in coffee shops and elevators. I was a temp at a job and worked for 3 days, and 3 days became a friendship that I had with the boss for a couple of years. I've had people like the long list of ways that I've met people is vast. But my point is, yes, I know I have an extroverted personality, but you can all take little snippets from my personality, because at the end of the day, we're not meant to be alone. You're meant to have these meaningful relationships. You're meant to be able to call some people when you're feeling low or when you have something to share. We're not meant to just be alone, because that's where life gets really lonely. And that's where depression sets in and so many other mental health issues. You need friends. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Deliberately Intentional. If you take anything away from today, is that your friendships are super important. Invest in them the way you would invest in the stock market, knowing that some will hit it and some might not, but you can't stop doing it no matter what. Thank you, Producer Mara, for your help today and always. And thank you guys for tuning in to another wonderful episode. See you next week, Wednesday. Bye.